there's a question these people hear again and again. Wait, you haven't seen that? You don't know about this? You're not on that app? And in that moment, there is a brief pause. Not embarrassment, not defensiveness, just a quiet realization that everyone else seems to be standing on the same page, and they are somewhere else entirely. They noticed the trend existed. They simply didn't feel the need to step into it. For most people, trends feel like gravity. They pull attention automatically. They create urgency. They whisper that now is the time and later is too late. But for some people, that pull never really forms. The trend passes by like background noise, seen, registered, then released. This video is about the psychology of people who never follow trends, not because they're trying to be different, not because they think they're better, but because, internally, trends feel optional rather than instructive. And that difference matters more than it looks. Before understanding why some people don't follow trends, it helps to understand what trends actually do for most people. Trends are not just about fashion, apps, music, or opinions. They are social shortcuts. When something becomes popular, it carries an invisible message. This is safe. This is accepted. This is current. Following a trend reduces decision-making effort. You don't have to ask whether something is good, useful, or interesting. The group has already answered for you. For many people, this feels relieving. It simplifies life. It creates a shared reference point. It lowers the risk of standing out in uncomfortable ways. This doesn't make people shallow. It makes them human. Humans are social learners. We subconsciously trust what others seem to trust. We feel calmer when we're aligned with the group's rhythm. That's why trends spread so fast. Not because people lack individuality, but because alignment feels stabilized. So when someone doesn't follow trends, the difference isn't taste. It's not intelligence. It's not moral strength. It's something deeper. At the core, many non-trend followers have a strong internal locus of control. This means their sense of direction comes from inside, not outside. When they make choices, they don't instinctively scan the environment for cues about what's popular or approved. They scan inward. What fits my life? What actually holds my attention? What feels worth my energy? Because of this, trends don't feel like signal. They feel like information. Interesting, but not binding. A trending show doesn't feel like something they're behind on. A new app doesn't feel like a missing upgrade. A popular opinion doesn't feel like a standard they must adopt. They may be aware of all of it. They just don't experience it as pressure. To them, trends are suggestions without authority. Another common trait is a relatively stable sense of identity. Many people experience their identity as something that needs constant updating, new aesthetics, new language, new affiliations. Trends offer ready-made updates. But for people who rarely follow trends, identity often feels anchored, not rigid, just settled. They don't feel an internal urge to refresh who they are every season. New things don't feel like necessary upgrades to the self. Because of that, trends can feel cosmetic, surface level. They may enjoy novelty when it genuinely resonates, but novelty alone isn't persuasive. What matters more is coherence, continuity, depth. When identity feels stable, there's no anxiety about missing out on collective moments. Nothing feels threatened by non-participation. Social pressure also works differently in these minds. Most trends spread through normative influence, the subtle discomfort of being out of sync. For many people, not knowing the reference, not having the thing, not sharing the excitement creates a small internal tension, a feeling of being slightly outside the circle. For non-trend followers, that tension is muted. Standing apart doesn't automatically register as danger. Difference doesn't feel like loss. This doesn't mean they don't value connection. It means they don't tie belonging to mimicry. Their sense of safety isn't strongly linked to matching the group's behavior. As a result, phrases like, "everyone has this now," or "this is what people are doing," don't feel persuasive. Sometimes they trigger the opposite reaction, a subtle internal resistance. Not rebellion, just withdrawal. Autonomy plays a large role here. People who avoid trends often have a high need for self-direction. They're sensitive to anything that feels like manipulation, even when it's subtle. Hype, urgency, social comparison. These register as external attempts to steer behavior. And when autonomy is threatened, compliance becomes unlikely. They would rather miss out than feel pushed. Approval feels optional. Freedom feels essential. There is also a cognitive pattern worth noting. Many non-trend followers have a delayed engagement style. When something becomes popular, they don't rush toward it. They wait. They watch how it unfolds. They notice who benefits. They let the excitement peak and fade. Only after the noise dies down do they decide whether it's worth their attention. This delay isn't about contrarianism. It's about clarity. Hype compresses thinking. Distance restores it. For these people, immediacy feels distortive. Time feels clarifying. For some, this orientation developed after burnout. Not everyone who avoids trends started that way. Some once chased every update, every release, every cultural moment. They stayed current. They stayed informed. They stayed visible. And over time, it became exhausting. Comparison, pressure, the constant sense of being slightly behind. Eventually, their nervous system learned something important. Opting out feels calmer. Ignoring trends became less about taste and more about self-preservation. A way to reduce noise, a way to protect attention, a way to breathe. Others were simply wired this way from the beginning. They gravitated toward depth over novelty, stability over stimulation, a few sustained interests instead of endless rotation. To them, constant updating feels like mental clutter, not excitement. They prefer to invest attention slowly, deliberately, and once invested, they stay. There is often a mixed relationship with belonging here. Research on low-conformity individuals shows higher ego strength and self-trust, but also greater distance from mainstream group dynamics. They may prefer small circle, niche communities, asynchronous connection. They don't reject people. They reject crowd momentum. Belonging for them is quieter, less performative, less time-bound. At this point, it's important to clarify what this psychology is not. Avoiding trends does not automatically mean depth, intelligence, or authenticity. Deliberately rejecting everything popular just to feel superior is still being controlled by trends, just in reverse. Genuine nonconformity isn't oppositional, it's selective. It's doing what fits, whether it's popular or not. And just as importantly, following trends isn't a flaw. For many people, trends offer comfort, rhythm, and shared meaning. Neither orientation is inherently better. They serve different nervous systems, different values, different ways of being in the world. As much as avoiding trends can feel internally calm, it often creates friction externally. Because while non-trend followers experience their choices as neutral, others rarely interpret them that way. When someone doesn't know what everyone knows, it can trigger discomfort in the group, not because knowledge itself matters, but because shared reference points are a form of social glue. Trends help people sync. They create instant conversation, instant belonging, instant mutual recognition. So when someone stands outside of that rhythm, the gap becomes noticeable. This is why non-trend followers are often met with questions that sound innocent but carry weight. How do you not know this? Where have you been? Why don't you just try it? The question isn't really about the trend. It's about alignment. And for the person being asked, there's often a quiet realization. Their internal experience doesn't map cleanly onto the group's expectation. Over time, this mismatch can shape how non-trend followers relate to social spaces. Some learn to mask. They pick up just enough surface knowledge to avoid friction. They stay vaguely informed without fully engaging. Others stop trying to translate their inner world outward. They accept that certain conversations will pass without them. Certain jokes won't land. Certain references won't register. This isn't withdrawal. It's prioritization. They conserve energy by not forcing synchronization where it doesn't feel natural. There's also a misconception worth addressing. People often assume that those who avoid trends must be detached, indifferent, or emotionally distant. But emotional distance isn't the same as emotional selectivity. Many non-trend followers feel deeply. They just don't outsource their emotional timing to the collective. They don't feel excitement because others are excited. They don't feel urgency because others are rushing. They don't feel meaning because something is labeled meaningful. Emotion, for them, arises internally. And when it does, it's often quieter, slower, and more sustained. This difference can be confusing to people who rely on trends as emotional amplifiers. Trends heighten feeling through repetition and shared intensity. They turn individual reactions into collective waves. For someone who doesn't tune into those waves, their emotional responses can appear muted from the outside. But internally, nothing is missing. The volume is simply set lower. Another common misunderstanding is the assumption that avoiding trends equals resistance to change. In reality, many non-trend followers change deeply, just not constantly. They are often open to transformation when it feels internally motivated, but resistant to change that feels externally imposed. Change for them must make sense before it feels safe. They don't adapt to keep up. They adapt when alignment shifts. This creates a rhythm that looks slow from the outside, but feels stable from within. Social media intensifies this difference. Platforms are designed to accelerate trends, compress attention, and reward immediacy. For non-trend followers, this environment can feel overwhelming rather than engaging. The constant stream of now, new, and everyone's doing this creates cognitive fatigue, not because they can't keep up, but because they don't want to. Opting out becomes less about rejection and more about mental hygiene. Silence feels cleaner than saturation. This is why some people never join certain platforms or leave them early, not out of fear, not out of superiority, but because the cost-benefit ratio doesn't add up internally. If a system worked before, constant updates don't automatically feel like improvement. Sometimes stability feels like progress. There is also an age-related dimension here. As people grow older, many naturally become less trend-oriented, not because they stop caring, but because they've seen the cycle repeat. What once felt urgent now feels familiar. What once felt new now feels iterative. For some, this shift happens early. For others, it takes decades. But when it arrives, it often comes with relief. The realization that not everything needs to be tried, owned, watched, or adopted. That missing out doesn't always feel like loss. Sometimes it feels like space. Still, it's important to acknowledge the trade-offs. Avoiding trends can mean feeling out of sync. It can mean fewer shared cultural touchstones. It can mean being misunderstood. There may be moments of social friction, moments of explanation, moments of quiet distance. But for many non-trend followers, the internal coherence outweighs those costs. They would rather feel aligned than updated. And finally, it's worth returning to where we started. That question. You haven't seen that? You don't know about this? You're not on that yet? For most people, these questions feel like invitations. For non-trend followers, they're more like observations, not accusations, not challenges, just signals of difference. And over time, many stop trying to justify that difference. They realize they don't need a reason. They're not behind. They're not resisting. They're not missing something essential. They're simply moving according to a different internal clock. While trends rise and fall, some people remain relatively unchanged. Not because they refuse the world, but because they don't need the world to tell them who they are. And for them, that quiet continuity feels enough.